Okay, welcome everybody. We'll do a roll call and then call us to order. Tony Corby.
Here.
Emily McGonigal.
Here.
Bruce Raboy.
Here.
Recording in progress.
Here. Roxanne Stokestad-Deach.
I'm here.
She's here. I don't think she's voting.
Yeah, I'm not.
Joanne Smith.
Here.
Jennifer Baker. And she doesn't appear to be here yet. Kevin Grover, Superintendent.
Present.
And is Mitch Erickson here? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so I see we have the approve the agenda as presented. We don't have much on the agenda. Can I get a motion? So
I'll second.
Bruce and Joanne. Okay, so for further discussion, I have a question on the agenda, Kevin.
Yep.
There's clearly a lot of people here. It looks like there's maybe not an open forum.
The plan is under number 1, the discussion relating to the fiscal 22-23 is to number 1, go through our presentation and talk about what we have on here, and it actually includes anything and everything with the 3 action items. And at that point, we will stop and start to have some discussion. And it would be my hope that we would allow, whether it's someone online or someone in the audience here or ourselves, to have some conversation. And that includes, like Rox online, she can't be here tonight, but she can give her input, she can't vote. But to have a conversation and have some discussion at that point. And then, and then as we kind of, everyone's had their chance, and again, we're gonna have to say, we can't go 20 minutes if, everyone, you gotta move it along. Then we will go down and go through the action items.
Okay, so with that being said, then, do you guys want to wait if somebody wants to wait to talk, or does somebody want to talk before the presentation, or do you guys want to wait to see anybody who's interested in communicating? I got one email. I wasn't aware that I was running a meeting, so I apologize if it's a little disorganized. But if you guys are here and want to be heard, that's cool.
I guess my thought is, I think we should just run through and and I'm going to talk about each attachment.
Okay, and then maybe it'll ignite some.
Like I say, we'll stop, let anyone who wants to speak, then let the board speak, and we'll go from there. So,
Jen Baker is online.
Okay, we have Jen online too now. Welcome, Jen. Okay, well then after the presentation, I'll say it again and maybe pick me up on it. Hello, welcome.
Can you hear me, Ted?
Yep, I can hear you. If you can hear me, we should be all set.
Okay, I'm gonna mute just until I need to speak. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so we have a motion by Bruce and a second by Joanne. Do we have any further discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, discussion relating to fiscal year 2022 to 2023 programs. So, you want to take it away, Kevin?
Yep. So the first attachment, and again, it's going to be hard to see. I'm guessing the board has looked through this. This is one of the sheets you had earlier that looked at, and again, looked at ADM for this year, average number of students, sections, and again, this is just looking at, I'm going to say, kindergarten, first, second. It does not include the specialists, and so we're just looking at general sections. And then we looked at, gave you an idea if we didn't have ESSER, or say we didn't have this money from COVID, a rough idea of where we see us being, and then we had given you a rough projection of where we thought, using the ESSER money, we were planning on being. And so it's the same sheet there with 2 exceptions. And we're going to talk through how we got to those tonight. One would be eliminating a 5th grade section, and then one which is, for the most part, eliminating a 10th grade section, and now that varies what courses. But that is, first of all, the gut of the difference here, okay? And so that's just to start. We'll come back, but I want to just kind of go through the order. So the next sheet then, and that I'm going to jump to is the, sections from the high school. And again, just kind of quickly, or fairly quickly, run through, again, you want to run this?
Yeah.
I'm going to just talk through it, if I can, those sections, and Stace can kind of run. It's going to be hard to see, but just so you're aware. And again, I'm starting with math just because that's what's on here first. So the first class on there was math for today. Last year, it had two sections. This year, we have 25 students. So we're recommending a 1 section for math for today. So in essence, what happens is that goes down from 2 sections all year. You could call it 4 if you want. A section is a semester class. Make sure we're all on the same page. So like this semester, first hour, if I taught Algebra 2, that's 1 section. If I taught second hour geometry, that's my 2nd section, and so on. So instead of math for today being two classes all year long, which is 4 sections, it's going to be 1 class all year long, which is 2 sections, 25 kids. Okay, so there's a reduction of two sections there. Going on, like I say, I'm not going to read through everything. Is the same? Sorry, I skipped the first page. If we go up to the top, there's a math reading class for 7th and 8th grade, same. We have nothing for 6th grade for math reading or title services. So we're recommending putting in call it a math reading for 6th grade. So that's actually an addition. It goes every other day though. One day they have math, one day they have reading. So it's actually only a semester for math, and it's going to be a semester for English when we get there. So that's actually an increase. And the other change in the math department is in Algebra 2, which is for the most part a 10th grade level course. We're going to reduce a section. Now the challenge there is you got to look at Honors Algebra 2, and Foundations Algebra 2. Those are all our Algebra 2 courses. They're going to go from 3 courses to 2. Whether we have an Honors and a regular track, or just 2 regular track Algebra 2s, that's yet to be determined. But instead of having 3 sections, we're going to 2. So that's a reduction of 2 semester classes. So in the end, in the wash, it's 3 sections is what we're short next year compared to this year in math. Are we on? Just keep rolling. Okay.
What are the algebra classes you said? I'm sorry.
Algebra 2 is we're going to be looking at all the 10th grade, quote unquote 10th grade classes. So Algebra 2, for the most part, is a 10th grade class. Honors.
Right, but you say you have 1 section now, correct?
No, we have 3 sections now. We have Foundations Algebra 2, we have regular Algebra 2, and we have Honors Algebra 2.
Okay.
So that's 3. We're going down to 2. What we call them right now, whether it's an Honors and a regular track, or 2 regular tracks, that isn't decided yet. But for the most part, there's, I'm just quick doing the math, give me 1 second. 47 kids for 2 sections. Okay? So roughly 24, 25, if it gets cut in half. Okay, Tony?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, moving on to social studies. Just happens to be the next one in order. Again, 6th grade, 3 sections this year, 3 next year. 7th grade, 3 this year, 3 next year. 8th grade, 3 this year, 3 next year, so on. We get to 10th grade, we're recommending going from 3 sections down to 2. It would be 2 classes of 31. Okay, so that's a reduction of 2 semester sections. And you can, like say, look, there's world history, senior social So that's the change in social studies, 10th grade. We're reducing a section all year long. Any questions there or keep rolling? Science, again, if you look at the six, you can see 3 at 24 for 6th grade, 3 at 23 for 7th grade, 3 at 26 for 8th grade. We hit biology, there's 62 kids in biology. There were 3 sections this year. We're recommending going down to 2 of 31. I mean, it's very similar, whether it's math, whether it's science, whether it's English. It's not always identical because there can be some repeats and different things. But again, that's a reduction, 0.182 or a semester class all year. Also, if you go down a little further, conceptual physics, we're reducing a semester of conceptual physics 1 and a semester of conceptual physics 2. It shows 34 kids, but the feeling is that number's going to come down a little bit. So it justifies having one section, roughly around 30 kids, and it is our gut where it'll end up. So science actually ended up getting hit with 2 classes, if you will, year long. English, as I mentioned earlier, as we start in, there's a math reading 6. We have a class in for 6th graders for those kids that have struggled. They were most likely probably getting some title services coming over. To be honest, we haven't had a class to support them in the past, so that's where that addition is. So that's an addition of a semester class. English 10 then, we reduce. And now again, English is kind of like math. You got to look in a couple places. There's English 10, and right below it there's Honors English 10. Okay? And if you would have looked, that would have been 3 sections for this year. So we're recommending going down for 2, or down to 2. Those numbers, again, they'll get evened out, whether you have an honors and maybe there's 30 in it, and then there's a regular track with whatever's left, or vice versa. There's 60, it looks like 62 I added right there, so it'll be divided by 2 roughly. So when it washes out with the addition of 1 semester, reduction of 2, we're actually down 1 semester class there in English. Going on to Phi Ed. The first adjustment, you can see the class sizes there as you go through. Phi Ed 9, for instance, 3 at 29. Phi Ed 8 has 3 at 26. We hit weight training 1 and 2. There's 31 kids in weight training 1 and 23 registered for weight training 2. Those were 2 sections each last year. We're recommending it be 1 section each, so 1 of 31 and 1 of 23. So that in essence is a reduction of a class for a year, 2 sections. And then on the bottom there, just because we're starting to think of stranding, the 2 people in Phi Ed here would have the right to strand, so what would they pick up? And so that's where we added preschool Phi Ed in on here. We've done preschool Phi Ed in the past, it's just neither Josh or Sarah have covered it. It hasn't been part of the high school, so we just put it in there. So it looks like there's a net change of 0, but it is affecting how much Phi Ed we have in the district. Okay? Does that make sense? Family and consumer science, there's no change in the number of sections there, 10 sections. Industrial technology, there are some changes there. If we start on technology 8, there were 2 sections this year, roughly 17 kids a section. Next year there'll be 3 sections of roughly 22 kids a section. So that's an increase of a semester class. Go down, there's 6 kids registered for CAD 2. So right now our recommendation is we can't run that class with 6 kids. We'll talk more about that in a little bit here. Hot metals 1, we're recommending 2 sections at 12 and a half, roughly 12, 13 kids. Now that's up from 1 section this year, sorry. Engineering, there's only 5 kids scheduled for that, so we would recommend to you, we can't run engineering with 5 kids. So that would be a reduction. Woods 1, there was 2 sections this year. We're recommending 3 next year, roughly 14, 15 kids a section. Comes up to be 14.3 in each class. So that's an increase. And then hand and power tools, only 4 kids registered. So we're, again, hard to offer with 4 kids. Now that being said, when it all comes out, it's a reduction of 1 semester class. Now, there has been some conversation, and again, just kind of like we haven't come out and said exactly how, I'm going to go back to math, you know, are they going to offer an honors track and a regular track, or do 2 regular track? That's some of the conversation that can happen within the departments. The same thing has come up here. Is it possible to, you know, rearrange, take the number of credits, and, you know, maybe between George and Dave, they feel, you know, we do need this because it just has to go, but we'll take a little more, and, you know, we'll take 25 in this class instead of. I'm not against that, but looking at what's registered, we got to make recommendations to you on the number of sections that it makes sense for. And there's going to be some things when we get down here, I'll talk about one in business that we're going to have to work to figure out how to solve over time. So anyway, that's, like I said, industrial tech down a semester section. Music, there's no change at this point. Everything, at least the way we see it, works out as is. Same with foreign language, the Spanish, as well as the American Indian Studies, Ojibwe. The one thing to keep in mind, there's a class with only 5 kids in Ojibwe. Keep in mind that's grant funded, okay? So getting rid of that is not going to help us. And so it's very often run with lower numbers than Ojibwe 3. So just throwing it out there, no change. And again, pipe in if anyone has a question here. Art, painting, painting had 3 sections this year with 21 in each section. There's only 22 total students registered next year, so we're dropping 2 sections there, going from 3 down to 1. Drawing had 2 sections this year. We're recommending it go up to 3 next year, and that would give us an average of 18 and a third, 18, 19 kids in each drawing class. Ceramics, 2 sections, that wasn't offered this year. It'd be 2 sections of 19 and a half, 19, 20 kids. Folk art, 7 registered, we won't run that. Not a high enough number was our feeling. The 7th grade, same 3 sections this year, 3 next year. Now 8th grade, and Tim, you might have to help me here. 8th was, they were switching from art from 8th to 7th, is that correct?
Yeah, we went from 7th to 8th, and then 8th back to 7th, and we had transitions, so now
Okay.
back to just 7th.
Okay, so that is not being offered next year. In the end, what ends up happening is we're a class short all year, semester class for all year short in art, okay? Business, we have a 6th grade computers, which that's just part of prep coverage. It's a rotation, so it looks like 71 kids. That's divided by 3. So you follow, just it's not 71 in a class, whatever that is. Desktop publishing, there was 1 section this year, had 8 students. There's only 2 students registered for it, so we're recommending that not run. Now, the caveat to that is typically that is the course required to get into the yearbook. And so, again, I'm not going to speak for Charlie. We talked about some options because we're fine next year still being able to run the yearbook, but we're going to have to figure out what options there are to get kids ready and able if we want to keep producing our own yearbook. There are other options. But it's just something I want to be up front there. So that would be a reduction. Reduction, like I said, 1 of 9, so that is the yearbook class that runs all year. The intro to business and accounting, they flip-flop each year. So this year was accounting, so it looks like a reduction, which it is. Business was this year. It won't be offered next year. There's 21 kids, that's 16 and 5 for accounting, so that goes, it's a rotating, so that's very common to go back and forth. We are proposing to drop the 7th grade elective, okay, and we are proposing to put in a required 7th grade course. We're calling it keyboarding, it would be some computers, every kid would take it. We're ending up with a fair number of 7th graders with 2 study halls, and so it's an area that we feel is a good place to put it in. We call it keyboarding 7, but it would be some keyboarding, and it'd be up, like I say, to Charlie and Tim and whomever else to figure out what we want 6th, 7th, 8th, and even down into the elementary, having some conversation of what needs to be covered and getting a better curriculum in place up through the years. So that is an increase there, and then 8th grade is the same. So in essence, the called business department is actually up a semester section, which would mean Mr. Anderson would not be traveling back and forth next year. This year, last couple of years, he's went back and forth. The nursing class, one semester of that. There's 13 kids signed up for that. 7th, 8th grade studies, one section of 24 there. The LC still operating, one full-time teacher over there, other than the special ed service also goes over. Special ed, we are not recommending, or it's not recommended to us, and we're not recommending any change as far as staffing. Now that being said, there's a process of adjusting caseloads and things like that as we get things set. Certain kids leaving, certain kids coming up from the elementary and vice versa. So they will work through that, but the recommendation from the co-op and our concurrence is it would be the same staff, same FTE, and I don't remember the number of students. I want to say we're down 8 or 9 projected from this year to next year, but still our numbers are high enough, caseloads are high enough that there's not a recommended reduction there. So all in all, it ends up being net at the high school, so to speak, a 1.091 reduction. Now, obviously how the stranding process works when people push, we've penciled a chunk of that out, but the question is, are we in agreement? You know, we need to not put names to faces with the size of the classes. And again, the process, or the reason we're here, is we met, I don't know if this is our 3rd or 4th budget meeting. The question was, we're about 400,000 short after 2 years, okay, below our 2.5 months operating expense. So the question last time when we left is, should we be looking for in the ballpark of 150, 200, give or take there, reductions? And so that's what Tim, Missy, myself, and other administration have started doing, and that's where these numbers are coming from. So we looked at sections and went, these make sense. Okay, now, yeah, it starts affecting, positions and things like that. Again, not that any of us want to be there, but we're looking at where people go and push. We also looked at, like I said, not going all the way through the elementary, can we get a section there? And that's where the 5th grade came from. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. I mean, can we do 28, 29 kids in a class? Yes, we can. We're going to have to as we see down the road. But we either make the adjustment now, start making some adjustments, or as we outlined in 2 years, we're behind the 8 ball already. We're already below our 2.5 month operating. And so we have to make that up. So we're trying to get somewhere in the ballpark. And again, it's not just this. We're going to look at para staff. We're looking at transportation right now, reducing the bus route. We're actually looking at not replacing one of our vans, looking at, some of that stuff. We're looking anywhere we can. We've started the software, what do you want to call it, inventory, and what's being used, what maybe is not being used. Again, talked to you last 2 weeks ago, and we're going to start looking everywhere we can and try and, again, not penny pinch to the point that we don't do the best job we possibly can, but we have to stay, if you will, balanced. And so that's where roughly these are coming from. And Tim, Missy, myself, none of us want. I mean, easiest, as we said last time, is to do nothing and end up 400,000 in the hole. and then deal with it. But that is not, at least those of us that are going to be here, not the place to try and aim for. And so unfortunately, we're here with these recommendations and going to ask for the board's support in there. And like I say, they don't come easy, and I had a conversation with a couple because we want to, like I say, respect everyone. I mean, like I said, easiest for me is to not recommend anything and end up 200,000, in the hole next year. Assuming, and again, there are some, what's the legislature going to do? We don't know. If we end up getting some kids back, yeah, we could add, if that 5th grade class gets too high, if we got 7, 8 kids back, I'm just throwing a number out, yeah, you can add a section back. I can't reduce a section. And so that's where we're at this point.
Any board members have anything they want to say? Jen or Rox online, do you have any questions? No?
I just will say I appreciate that you guys have worked so hard on looking at all these areas, and so thanks for going through all this, Kevin.
And there are a couple more pieces. We'll talk SRO, we're going to talk business office a little bit, and then I'm just stopping at sections for a second, and think that's a spot to, like I say, throw ideas around. I mean, again, not ideal. I wish we, the numbers weren't what the numbers were, but again, they're the place, I guess, we feel we need to get to, unless we want to just roll the dice and hope. And that's a tough spot to be in, or for me to recommend to you to just, hope we get enough back, hope the legislature does something.
So, yeah, I'm on. So it's not great. Could definitely be worse. So what I'd like to do then is, if any other board members have something to say, otherwise, if Kevin's okay with it, open it up. We have a big audience here, a lot of teachers. Is there anybody who wants to speak to anything? Yeah, you're welcome. You want to grab a microphone?
And I'm going to ask, I'll bring the mic back here. Someone asked, is it proposed that 5th grade will be 2 sections for next year? And that is part of the proposal. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so, and if somebody wants to talk afterwards too, everybody can have a chance, as long as, if too many people want to talk, then I'll just maybe limit the time or something like that. But anybody?
Tim, is there any, and not to put you on the spot, anything I missed, roughly going through? Okay.
Kevin, can you remind us of what the student enrollment was in 2019 compared to today? And as well as what the FTEs are?
Yep, give me just 1 second here.
Or it changed from that time to today?
You want to pull it up?
I think that's relevant
Yep.
to this discussion.
Are you talking about the one I did with the,
Yeah.
that had the staffing and the FT, the ADM?
Yep.
You want me to stop sharing then?
Let me find it first.
The other difficult thing is for the board and for administration is that the ESSER funds were a bit of a double-edged sword for us. Okay, where they've offered a lot of relief monetarily for us and allow us to continue to do a lot of things, and that money's going to go away. It's a lot of money, and so so something has to be done. We can't wait till that sun sets and then decide we're going to do something.
Okay, I know.
Because then I think it'd be more painful for the district as a whole. I think it'd be more painful for staff members as well. So in our discussions, we're trying to keep all considerations on the forefront. Teachers, full-time staff, whether it be bus drivers or cafeteria or whoever. So, and obviously the student enrollment comes into play too, and the trend the trends that have taken place for quite some time now. And everybody has the hope that that trend is going to stop and swing back. The pendulum's going to swing back the other way. But, you know, fiscally speaking, I don't know that we should do that. I don't think that's wise. But anyway, go ahead, Stacy. What?
And I guess I think this is the one you're referring to, at least fiscal 19, we were at 998, okay? And again, that number is what it is. It's not a number. Fiscal 20, 986, 939. This year, we're down to 899. You know, roughly 100 kids. Now again, did we lose some because of the mask issue? I mean, that, yeah. You know, how many are we going to get back? We gained a fair number, you know, this year before the mask issue too. They're not all here. Some are still here, but the projection for next year, and again, I hope we're way off, is 875. You know, that's roughly 125 kids different. And you can look across, and again, licensed staff, we're actually higher than we were in 19. You know, now just talking teachers. And again, some of that is due to ESSER and different things. We've added some things that are good. There's, you know, no doubt about that. Custodians, you can look at every group in there. And so we are going to have to adjust as time goes on.
We had some teachers with their hands.
Yep. And I don't know who wants to go, not to put anyone on.
Can you hear me okay? All right.
Yep.
All right. I'm Alex Manassa, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a math teacher with the district, so naturally I'm here to talk about the math classes for next year. And I wanted to specifically talk about the removal of the Foundations Algebra 2, which is one of the classes I have the pleasure of teaching this year. So just for a little bit of background knowledge, and Mr. Grover talked a little bit about this already, but at FHS, we start tracking our students in math when they are in 7th grade. So this means we take into consideration a few factors, and we place our students into a low, medium, and high math track. And we call the low the foundations, we call the middle the regular, and we call the high the honors. And Algebra 2 is actually a junior class, but our 10th graders take it when the honors track takes it in 10th grade. So that's how we run our honors track. They basically do the class a year earlier than they would usually. So we do this so that we can best meet students where they are at in terms of their math ability. And in my experience, I've been teaching for 9 years. This has been great in moving groups of students forward as their abilities within each class are similar. In the situation outlined on proposed sections for next year, 11 students who should be in Foundations Algebra 2 are going to be placed in Algebra 2 or split somehow. So if they were to go just into the class of 22, it would be a class of 33. I'm not sure, of course, if we would have to talk about it, but I'm not sure how much it would make sense to move some of those kids into honors. That would obviously be a discussion, but those classes are going to be bigger. And I think that no matter what, that those 11 students are going to, who are supposed to be in the foundation class, are going to lose out on the extra support and the extra confidence that they gain and the success that they have being with students who have similar abilities that they have. I also did want to point out that those numbers aren't also including the students who may have to retake Algebra 2 next year, and it is a graduation requirement. I understand everything that was said in the presentation here. Our school is getting smaller, and we are moving to 2 sections, and in many places we already have. The 5th grade and the 10th grade are being discussed tonight. And I also understand that you have a job to do. But if this is something we're moving towards in the future, and it sounds like it is, in the math department, I really think we need to think this through to make sure that we are doing what is best for students. And I believe that keeping math in 3 sections, splitting them up how we do, is what is best for students, and I hope that we can make that a priority for next year and in future years. As you make your decisions tonight, I ask you to consider the different needs of students and what is best for them to be successful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Is there anybody else that wants to talk? All right, man, I was really looking forward to it. I saw you guys all here.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Just so everyone can hear.
Just because I don't quite understand it. A student goes in the cafeteria and he has 3 lines with 3 classes.
Can you just so that
Is that right? I mean, when they sign up for classes,
they go in the cafeteria?
they put their top pick, their second pick, right? And then, so anyway, as Alex talks about math, I'm talking about tech. The numbers that are up there are roughly like the 3 classes that are going to get cut. That is roughly 15 kids. Are those numbers already projected on another list? You follow me?
You mean the
I'm just not sure how that works. Because say like hand and power tools, there's 4. I think Dave had 6 in CAD, that's 10.
those kids are not placed in other classes yet.
Okay, so those kids are going to have to
They're
go
going to have to go somewhere, correct? Just like,
So they're not
no, they're not.
accounting for them.
No, they will then, there's 2 things that come into play, and I'm sorry, I don't like my back. There's a couple things. One, just say 25 kids register for a class. If we go with these sections, they now go into, I'm going to say, the scheduling process, and they create a schedule and try and find the least number of conflicts. And Tim can speak to this better than I can, but odds are all 25 might not get in there, depending on what else they want. And so, say 22 get in there, 3 didn't. We have to then get them in and either look at a second choice or what else can, and we talked about last week, that's where, take a Woods 1. There's some kids that aren't registered for Woods 1 that'll probably end up in Woods 1 because they didn't get, whether it's an art class or get something that they want, and vice versa. Some of that, it happens. And same thing, if we don't run a course, all those numbers, those kids have to go somewhere. And it's possible we get somewhere to where another section has to be added, depending on how high it is now. I'm just being honest. As the schedule's built, it's a puzzle, if you will. Does that answer your question, I guess?
I just didn't know if those kids were accounted, already tallied in somewhere else.
In the other piece, and again, like you said, and I understand 100%, this is people we're talking about. I mean, I'm there. I had some conversations last week with some people. It is personal. We make this decision. We have a rough outline of what the stranding process will look like. And yeah, there are people that are affected. Now, that being said, there are some options. We have a retirement that hasn't been accounted for, which opens up a position. We have some ESSER money, and I don't know who's been on our discussions, this 20% set aside has to be used for certain things, and we're looking at what we call, or trying to call, family home interventionists, one for the elementary and one for the high school. We're trying to get that approved, which would help students that are struggling, help with family as well as school issues. Again, it's short term, it's a couple years funding. We're going to be looking for someone, whether that is truly a union position or it's something that keeps someone employed at a similar rate of pay and benefit for a couple of years, and hopefully we gain some attrition. That's a piece we haven't, completely figured out yet, but that's kind of where we're at. And just because of the question of, why were some people talked to and why haven't, I've talked to people, and I'm going to use George if that's okay, because you look at that sheet, he can figure out he's impacted. Now, 5th grade, none of the 5th grade teachers were talked to because they're all going to have a spot, okay? And I don't know who's going to be, if this is adopted, moving, or on a normal year someone could move, could go from 5th to 3rd for whatever reason. So we haven't had those conversations with certain people. First thing is to figure out if we support what's being recommended, and if it is, then we will work to go through the stranding process with the union as well as administration, and as quick as we can, because no one likes sitting wondering what's going to happen, or where am I going to be.
I was not intending to speak, but I was in the shower this morning and I had all these wonderful thoughts and I couldn't even put them on paper when I got out. But I just think I was reflecting on my class that I have this year as well as the classes I've had. I think this is my 4th or 5th year here. Every single year this is the first year I haven't had kids in foster care. I've got 25% of my class is special ed. this year, say I don't have any foster care kids, I've got 25% special ed. Add 5 or 6 more that go to tier. I've got 6 buddy backpacks that go home every Friday because these kids don't have food instability at home. I look at all of these different things, and I've got 20 kids in my class, and I honestly looked at that thing and it said 32.5 kids. And I look at the 2nd grade coming into 3rd grade next year, and they're in 4 sections. And I know we're not talking that being a reality, but they're in 4 sections with 4 pairs. And the reality is it's looking like there will only be 1 pair in that group next year. How do we take the kids with that high of needs and shove them all in one room and expect us to do what we want to do and what we know is best? We've been talking about doing MTSS and trying to really intervene and hit these kids when we need to. We can't realistically do that with 33 kids in a class. Will we make it work? Yes. Will we put on the bells and whistles and do the show? Yes. But we're not going to last very long. Those families are going to see those things. I mean, it's not going to be group work. It's going to be paper, pencil, turn it in. It's just not, it's not a reality. And I got a new student this year that was in a level 4 EBD program with 3 other kids. She walked into my classroom with no assistant. I mean, she's in special ed, but with no para, no nothing. And she's been in a 4-to-1 ratio class for the last 2 years. Like, we can't continue to maintain these behaviors. I guess I implore that you guys look at these classes not just as a number, but as what this is actually going to impact for our classrooms. I mean, I can say Ty's got a little guy in her class that doesn't have a para, that is in the hallway at least once a week, that the entire class is impacted, the entire hallway is impacted. And I'm not saying a para is going to solve that, but what if he's in my classroom next year with 33 kids? What good is that going to do for us? And the numbers are the numbers, and I get the financial responsibility, I get all of it, but some of these classes have much higher needs in it. We keep saying that every year. We're like, okay, well, if we can get through next year, it's going to be better the next year with behaviors. And it's like, looking down the line, we're like, oh, we might need to take a 5-year leave of absence to get past. But it's just the reality of the kids right now, and COVID and everything else hasn't helped. But I implore that you will look at not just numbers, but actual physical space and how we can do the things we know are best for kids with the behaviors and the people we have.
Someone else was.
Thank you very much.
And again, I don't disagree. And I'll be honest, and I think if we were all honest, there's classes that we probably had where there are 30 kids in, and there's classes we had 20. And that 20 might have been harder one year than a 30. I mean, I'm just being honest. You know, I used to teach honors algebra too. Had 30 plus, some people in here were in there. You know, but it was never a problem because there was never discipline issue. You know, and for the most part, I'm not going to say there was never, could have been special ed, could have, autistic, but I mean, it's not the high behavior special ed. So there are differences, and I think that's a valid. The reality that, and I'm going to say the 1920 number that we're pretty much all in, there isn't a way to sustain that unless they change the funding formula. I mean, now, how many classes we can keep on that lower end, and I'm going to say K1, 2, it's going to get to be seen. At the high school, I mean, again, not to say there's no class. I mean, there's going to be a class that's determined to run at, 12, 9, but on average, you can't run classes at that. And so that's the challenge.
Hi, I'm Kim McDonald, this year Title I teacher. And I want you to think about the numbers. We can all go back in time and say, oh yeah, 28 kids in 5th grade or 6th grade or 33. Then it worked. And it's across all the state. There's different schools that have that many kids in their 5th grade classes. But the reality is, and the real reality is, we are not anywhere near where we were 3 years ago with our kids. I will tell you that socially, emotionally, maturity, academically, security-wise, we have kids that should be not playing in their upper elementary classes throughout the day with little tiny toys and making things instead of learning, and that's their security right now. If you were to come into someone and see what's happening in the upper elementary right now, the kids they've got a lot of anxiety, And so to raise that number to 28, which doesn't sound unrealistic on paper, but the mental health piece of those children is the highest I've ever seen it. It's just, and I've been doing this a long time, and I've been in every grade level, and I will always fight to say that the primary grade should be the lowest by far. And I've been in classes well over 35. I've been in, everything, in every grade. It's quite upsetting for me to see the 5th grade be 28 at this stage in the game. In a few years, maybe, if we can get people, get the counseling in place like you're talking about, getting those services in place to support the kids and the families. But that piece, we keep talking about it all year long, and last year and the year before, that social emotional learning, if it's not there, it isn't going to happen. I'm teaching Title I this year right now, and I have one group of kids where I have 5 at my table, and my support staff has 3 or 4 at his table, and they're bringing little toys, and they can't even look at their math paper because they're so insecure. And they cry, even in that small environment. That's not normal. It's just not. And I don't wish that for anybody's child. And so we just think long and hard about that 28, because it's very upsetting to me to see that number.
You're right, Kim.
Thank you very much.
And the thing is, I agree 100%. You know that. I agree.
Yeah, you're low. But yeah, the red it's your value is low.
I agree 100%, but as you said, the way it was 5 years ago is not the way it is today. Greater needs.
He's got to speak.
3 to 5 years from now, it's going to be greater. And then we have to think about, at that period of time as well, we're shy a lot more money as a district. Okay, so that I'm just trying to put some. This is such an emotional topic, and it's a societal issue that a lot of it we can't fix. But we still have to do a job, and we got to do a good job, and we got to do it for the kids. But we have to fund it as well, or we can't do a good job. And, so if collectively, if people put their heads together and found out different ways, Alex had a great presentation, in ways to make sure we have the proper programming, but yet not having to spend as much money that we want to have. That would be the best case scenario. But
I guess I hold out hope, Bruce.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at is with the things that you're talking about putting in place.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that in 3 to 5 years we're going to be worse or whatnot. I think that with doing what's right now is going to alleviate and start to slow that process down and speed us back up.
The challenge, and I'm just going to be honest, 2 things. One, like this ESSER money, this family home interventionist, it's not the fix-all, but that is strings attached that I can't use that just to pay a regular teacher, unfortunately. I mean, I would have 2 positions, we could, not even have this conversation. But the second piece is, if we end up just say everything works out as planned, I'm not sure we're going to get more money from the government this go around. They might not come to a decision. Next year, it's an actual funding year, different story. But if we end up that 400,000, take those numbers and try figuring, and it's not just teachers, but I mean, let's face it, teachers, administration, the education piece is the majority. And so how do I can't have, that's where I projected, or we worked together to project, if we didn't have this COVID money, most of those classes ended up being 28, 27, 29. If we end up another 400 in the hole, I'll be honest, I don't know where you end up getting that. And that's, like I say, where we're trying to take that step back and go, if we can come out even to where we're still at that 2.5 month then we can proceed and maybe we only have to go down to second grade. I don't know exactly where with the, I'm going to say 28, 29, 30 range. Now, if we end up getting a windfall, and when I say windfall, it doesn't satisfy, change this. If we got an extra 200,000, that helps things, that changes things. We're not going to get an extra $1 million ongoing where we don't have to do any of this. But that's the problem of hoping. Again, I don't disagree. I don't like, Tim doesn't like, Missy didn't like the idea of 28 in a class. If it works out 29, it's that borderline. But on the other hand, to step back and go, if 2 years from now, if it holds true, and it's not going to be far off. It's a matter if we get enough kids back or get kids back, or if we get more money legislatively. If it doesn't, we're in a bad spot. That's the reality. And so that's where these conversations, and again, not saying agree, it's not great. And that's why I say caveat. Everything we've talked about, the easiest is to do nothing. But we're going to be, well, at least you'll be looking at me going, why do we do nothing? If it doesn't hold.
Yeah, so is there anybody else, audience, board member? I think this is, Tony and I have been doing this for a little while now. Tony's on her 7th year of going to these type of conversations, and every year it doesn't get any easier, except it did because there was all this COVID money, and it's just sad that it took a pandemic, the state and federal government, to pay attention to how much was actually needed in mental health and stuff like that. So is more money maybe coming? Yeah, but it's not going to be at the same thing as it was before. And we're not talking about not having money in 3 to 5 years. We're talking about having enough money for next year. We can, if there was some argument about pushing stuff down the road, as a possibility, that's a possibility, but in the long run, a lot of it's getting cut just because the funding's not going to be there after next school year, for the most part. So I don't know. It just, again, it sucks to do this every year, every couple years, really. And I don't know that there's any good answers to any of it, but I do appreciate everybody who spoke up, and it was very informative for me, at least, to get some perspective. So thank you.
Does Rox want to speak? Is that what we're working on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jen, we're working on getting Rox back on here. Do you have anything? I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know where she went. Jen just said she wanted to speak as well. Jen can unmute herself.
Jen, you can unmute yourself if you're ready to talk.
Okay.
Rox got kicked.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. If you can't hear me, just let me know. I really appreciate all the work you guys have done at looking at all these really hard numbers. I really appreciate, every week I appreciate what the staff are doing. I think about that. And it's tough to be in this place where we're at, and I know we have to make tough decisions. And I hear what Sarah and Alex and George and Kim are saying, because they're seeing it, and I trust what they're saying to us in terms of the needs. And I very much want us to offer the best program that we can. I'm wondering, so if I just want to ask a few clarifying questions. If we make cuts and say we have an increase in numbers, we can add if we have an opportunity. The opportunity is there, we can add. And I know it's not perfect to that insecurity of whether someone has a job or doesn't have a job, and I understand that's not optimal, but if we needed to, if we felt like we had the resources and we could add because we got more students after the summer program or other things. Is that possible, Kevin?
That is correct. That is correct.
And is there any, I also appreciate the opportunities we offer kids outside of class, but I recognize that our primary job is to help these kids, all the kids, day to day, every day in class? Have we looked at options of saving through athletics or extracurriculars?
It is part of the process, what we're looking at, like I said, for the next 2 years, we need to look at everything, and from athletics, extracurriculars, to, like I said, vehicles, to paper usage, to supplies, you know, that whole piece. It's just tough. Like I said, we're starting to look at the software piece. You don't realize there's a ton of software that we pay subscriptions and different people use, and you know, it's coming up with a way of, is it truly worth the $3,000, the $5,000, you know, that type deal. And you know, if I use it, it's important to me, but it's putting a value that, you know, what is the right number or the right amount of usage to make it worth a supplemental, you know, payment. We're getting rid of one, and again, it's just an example, but if you recall the Volt, it was again a 3-year purchase. Mainly the district had a little money, but it was mostly fundraised for athletics, extracurriculars, and it's coming due, and it's just not being used enough. You know, so the district is not gonna, and they're not gonna go fundraise for it again. It just didn't pan out. I'm not saying it is what it is.
I think those types of looking at those things are great, and I know that it's a big job for you guys to look at all those levels. Sometimes in my work, they try to encourage all of us to look for ways of saving. So even like if any of us, if there's any ideas that other staff might know about that might be, you know, their own ideas about saving costs in athletics or saving costs in resources, you know, that any of that feedback would be really helpful. I have one. Is there? I know the class reductions are of licensed staff, and you haven't looked at para staff yet, but from the needs that are being presented, like again, what Kim and Sarah particularly said, are there ways, even though licensed staff in the classroom are so important, is it possible to not trim para staff as much or offer where administration and staff feel there's greater need, whether it's in a certain grade level class or knowing that there's greater needs? Can we offer more para support with specific intentions as to what they can, how they can support a group without it being tied to a particular student? And in a sense then, have more support, less class sections, but more staff support for the kids that need to go take a break or need a different opportunity or work in, you know, a different task while kids are working on something else.
And Jen, I guess, you know, the easy answer is, yeah, that can be looked at, but I am going to also argue, and we've talked about this other years, if you want to put, I'm just picking, you know, a para in every second grade class, say 3 paras, I would just soon have those 3 paras add up to another teacher. I'm going to, you know, recommend we put the, you know, one more section. Now, if it's an extra one, I'm just picking, you know, Sarah ends up with a group that's maybe a little more of a challenge than the other 2 classes. I mean, that is an option, and it's not a, you know, it's not the same as adding 1 in each. I mean, I'm just throwing that out as an option, but does that answer?
I hear what you're saying. I'm like, not necessarily across the board. Everybody get, you know, 1 para per room. I'm saying where those needs are. There's numbers on the Excel sheet, but they translate to day-to-day real different challenges. And with that flexibility of, it's not just about paring down to the bare minimum, it's about looking at those needs where it might be. I hear what you're saying now. If we need X number of paras in a grade, maybe that highlights that we need that extra section. So I'm just bringing that up as consideration. I trust that you guys can take a look at that. Because if we can bridge this, is what I'm hoping, with some support staff, because there's such great needs right now, would be helpful.
And I'm going to chime in too, Jen, if that's okay. I think that's similar to what my question was as well, because I know that we can't use the COVID funding to hire a teacher per se, but I'm not even hearing, I'm hearing that it's a concern about positions, but I'm also hearing from staff that it's more of a concern about the impact that COVID has had on our children in terms of mental health, academic lag, and how that's directly impacting the classroom. So is there some creative ways of looking at adding more support staff, whatever that looks like, whether it's a para, whether it's whatever the option or creative piece could be, to help kids regain to that functioning level that they lost due to COVID?
And my answer, and again, the shell game can be played. You've seen how we have the 2 years of COVID money laid out. The only thing that is not 100% accounted for is this 20% set aside, which is paying for like the summer school programming. We're trying to be creative and get, like you say, these family, just call them family homeschool interventionist positions approved. It's not a guarantee. I was on Friday on the phone, and maybe even Thursday, with the state trying to get, be creative and, get something like that to help support, because it's that 20% set aside that we don't have spent yet, so that, if you want to take and, get more support, it's got to come from somewhere right now. You know what I'm saying? That, the money, it's all allocated, unless we get more from somewhere, or we get more students back or whatever, the money is doled out, so to speak. It's being used to keep, as much staff or as many staff in positions in place. So, the answer is, yeah, we can do more staff, but we got to reduce something to come up with more money. And like I say, to me it doesn't, and I'm just throwing it out there, to cut, I don't even want to say it. I'm not even gonna open my mouth on that. To cut one and add another, you got to figure out which is the best, best use of your funds. Like I said, if we're going to cut a section as a teacher and hire 3 paras, I'm going to argue let's keep the section, because I think the smaller class and the licensed instructor, again, is better than having 3 support people. And again, the support people are great, but now, again, if there's like a one-on-one, or if there's a class that is deemed it's needed, it's better than having a whole other section. But like I say, right now, Rox, are you on and want to try speaking?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, well, I guess, first of all, I'm very sorry that I couldn't talk before. I don't know what's wrong with my technology. But anyway, one of the other things that I wish that our community, whoever is listening, will go away with is to say that if we could get kids back, and that doesn't mean that we're going to have an even worse class size situation, because bringing back students would bring back funding, which means we could have smaller class sizes than if we got students back and had enough funding for it. So, I'm also encouraging people to tell those people they know, kids who are not attending in our district and who could attend our district, that we also have absolutely wonderful programming going on, and we have teachers that really care, and we're trying to do the best we can with the smaller amount of dollars, but we certainly would have more dollars if we had more students and we could make the classes smaller. So I just wanted to say that. And on top of that, I have to say, I wish there was a way to do this differently. I don't know how to do it, because you look at your checkbook, and if you don't have the money, what do? I feel for everyone, and Kim and everybody, and Sarah, everybody, they're speaking the God's honest truth about what's going on there. And I just don't know what we can do about it. I think some of these ideas are great, but in the end, unless we get more students back and more money into our pockets, we're not going to be able to do a lot of this. So, and that's what I have to say.
Thanks, Rox.
Oh,
you're good for me. Do we have, is that the end of our discussion then? Is there anybody, board members, audience members alike?
Board members will have a chance again when
Yeah,
we
that's
take
true.
action. The only other piece I just before we go on, just so we can have, there's two other pieces on there. One thing that was tabled from last meeting was SRO, School Resource Officer. The board asked me to, at least contact a couple other districts. I actually talked to 3, I only got information from 2. That attachment is on there. Again, the districts I've talked to, again, it's nothing but a positive for the most part, and used however you can incorporate them, from truancy to discipline to safety to and the list goes on. Now that said, yeah, it's a tough time to have those conversations, and so again, I'm going to be open to maybe it isn't the right time. Now, I mean, it didn't come out of fear of safety. It came out of conversation that this might be a possibility for some ESSER money, and being able to work with the county and give the county some time to also develop to make, like we talked last time, a full-time position. But on the flip side, I'm not drawing the line in the sand on that item. Again, I would support it. It would have help, but again, it's in the ballpark of $25,000 more than what we already spend $10,000 for service, and I don't know. I'm not going to say it is the right time, because, like I say, it's not a safety. It would be helping with social emotional. It would be helping with safety. It'd be helping with truancy. It'd be helping with anything we could come up to work together on. But so that's on there. Whether we pull it off for time being and see what happens over the summer, I can live with that. Or it's like I say, the conversation started a while back. Any questions on that? And again, sorry.
I have a question. It goes more towards budget. It was just something that I was wondering, and it's more of a special ed question. But when we have a student who has an IEP, and let's say...
Is someone speaking?
Just one second, sorry.
Your microphone.
Thank you. My question was more of a budget question for special ed. So if I have a special education student, and let's just say we have an IEP meeting and we determine that that student needs a shared paraprofessional or a one-on-one, whatever that may be, if that's a student, let's say we already have in the district, where does that money come from? Is that already pre-planned into the budget, or does that come from somewhere else?
Okay, the question was if a student, and I guess I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, you can give me thumbs up or thumbs down, but if a student, whether they currently are special ed, we get funding based on what they qualify in services for. If a student needs a one-on-one full-time, we get a certain amount of funding. Now that being said, it's not full funded. That's the problem of just special ed in general, is it's about two-thirds, right? Roughly? I mean,
Roughly, no, I'd say we put about $1 million out of the gen ed.
Point is, they say it's about two-thirds funded. So there's a third, any special ed cost, a third is covered out of general fund. And again, that's not pointing. We have to do what the IEP and the services determine we do. And that's where legislatively they're talking, and it's up again, and it would be the best thing for all districts if, again, federally and state, it was fully funded. But it's not there, and so it's not just us, it's every district. So I mean, don't take it the wrong way. If a kid has a para added, we do it because it's what needs to be. I don't want anyone sitting there going, "Geez, this could hurt the bottom line." We don't, no. I mean, if that's what they need, just like if they need therapy, if they need whatever, we have to, we need to do it. It's the right thing, and we see where things come out. The other piece that is down on there, and again, it's not a good time to bring this up. It's something we've talked about I'm going to say for the last 2 years, is the issue of the reduced time in the business office. Again, it goes back 3 years or 4 years when Sue left. We reduced the position. We ended up hiring a person for 1 hour a day to be food service director. And then we're still struggling, so we have a part-time business person for 2 days a week, roughly. Doesn't operate in the summer, and there's a chunk of time here and there that they don't operate. But for the most part, it is trying to help with some special pieces. They don't have weekly or daily tasks. So we've had this conversation of we can never get ahead of the game, so to speak. And it very much came to light here, I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, when we had our payroll person that was out for, I'm going to say, roughly a month. Okay, we have no one for the most part to fill in other than the business manager. Then, I'm going to say just about the minute that person got back, there was a family emergency on our other position, and the only person to cover. And the conversation I've had with several of the board members is the district's in a bad place if something happens. Okay, we have no one. And again, I'm going to go back 40 years ago because I've asked the question of back when, and I'm going back to some people, long time before, business manager as well as the other two positions, who did it when they were gone? And the answer that has come out is you planned your vacation and when you could be gone and got payroll done and you got, no one was cross-trained. And so I'm just saying from the district standpoint, we're not in a good spot. I know quite a bit about, at least I think I know quite a bit about, payroll and FMLA and all this other stuff, but that is different than running payroll. And I use the hospital when I was talking with someone earlier. I'm guessing Rob Pastor doesn't know how to run payroll. Not that he doesn't know about it. We need to somehow get, and so I'm asking the board to consider, again, it's not a good time, but we were hit with someone going to walk out of here for another position. I let the board know. No one knows how to do EdFi, the Mars County, which is no one. We need to get someone, at least have a base of knowing that so that, again, if something happened, something can happen to any one of us, okay? And it's just, we're in a bad spot having no or very little cross training. So we've thrown out an idea on here of increasing a position, making it back just about to full-time, and there's actually a document in there that shows a way they would have some specific duties, but there's also a training schedule in there of when would they learn payroll. And then when that person is in payroll, the person that would be doing payroll can help, but they can also start to learn something else and get into where we have some cross coverage. And like I say, I'm just recommending to the board, it's in our best interest, I think, to get some double coverage. And again, I want it out there. I didn't want to not have the conversation and bring it up 2 weeks from now or a month from now. Whether we move on it tonight or not, I want it in the forefront that I think it's in our best interest to figure out a way to have some double coverage, if you will, in the event something happens, someone leaves. Any questions on that before we move on to action?
Okay, so I'm going to just call them like action items then, and we can have individual discussion. So it'll be back to the rules of just before board members to discuss the action items when we get to them. But thank you, everybody who participated, and I really appreciate you guys showing up and arguing for you guys' cause for students. I'll entertain a motion for action item number 1, approve grades pre-K to 12 sections for the 2022 to 2023 school year. And then there's the attachments referenced. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion by Bruce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Emily. Thank you, too. Okay, so further discussion. What does there need to be further discussion?
I would like to make one short statement.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I know I can't vote, but I appreciate, again, the work that went into trying to make this work. And Bruce, you made some really good points too, that we do have to work within our limitations. I want to also, though, echo what Rock said, because I think there's potential there. I believe my youngest is, so I'm almost done with 2 kids going through the system, and they've had really terrific staff at all levels. They've had good staff helping in so many ways, and our programming is really good. Right from the beginning, our early programs all the way through, I've had really good experiences for my kids. And that's important to keep sharing, because as a community, whether it's a board member or a staff member, obviously we're invested in how many kids are in our seats, because we want the best opportunity, and we want, our jobs are involved in that. But our whole community, as a parent, my kids have more opportunities when there's more kids in our district, that live in our district, that are in our schools. And so every community member, every business person who wants to attract more businesses or more qualified staff, the better our education program is, the better our whole community does. But everybody has an investment in us having the most robust program. And to do that, we need as many kids that are eligible to be in our seats, So I know our community is getting smaller, but we're all need to be invested in some growth plan, whether that's through strategic planning, whether it's through better communication. And I think we do a really great job, and I've seen it over these last couple of years, that some people coming into our district that had chosen to be out or were already in another district. And I think we continue to invite them and welcome them and share what we're offering, including this summer program that's really going to be fabulous. So that's so important, and I just wanted to point that out one moment. Thanks.
And I think I will comment, if you don't mind. Again, I want to very clear that, Missy, Tim, and I, and a few other people that we've, got input from, but the recommendations are coming from the 3 of us. It's not the spot any one of us want to be in. And it's the same, when we walk, it's not us against, and I sure hope you can take it it's not us against teachers, or us against paras or whoever ends up being reduced. It's where we feel, unfortunately, we have to recommend and be, because, like I said, that's where we're at. I don't want anyone, it's not, hey, just throw this on the paper. We went around and around, and Tim doesn't want any of the reductions in here. I don't want any. Missy doesn't want any. But this is where, again, I asked, because we need support, and if you don't want the cuts, don't direct us. And that's what I asked a few weeks ago, so to speak, because again, if we're missing something, I'll be the first to admit if we may, someone brought some, hey, never thought about that, like table this for a while. I mean, we would be human, we would go there. So I throw that out.
You have something else to say?
I do. What I'm thinking right now, like your comment, you just said it's not us against the staff, and I get that, but at this point of looking at some of this, I feel like it's us against the students. I feel like we're taking away some of the things that they truly need right now. They have the best teachers. We're hoping, more kids are coming back. We want the best programming. We want the lower class sizes. But I feel right now we're going to do these cuts, and then the outside community is going to see, well, hey, they've got bigger class sizes. No, I'm not going back there. I know this is just a little piece of it too, and I'm just kind of taking notes, like the summer programming. Did that have to be offered for free with staff getting higher paid at this point?
That 20% set aside is $300,000 a year. And so it is, I'm going to say, accommodating to staff, whether it's paras, whether it's teachers, whatever. We have the money. We also got another $7,000 the other day in summer funding. They deserve it. The staff that, are stepping up.
That's why I'm just not wanting to slap them in the face with, here, take.
No, but the point is that money can't be used can't be used for regular program.
Okay.
It's a federal program, it's gonna be audited. Like I said, if we could shell game that, we wouldn't have to have the conversation of the 5th grade section or some of the others. But we have that pot that, I hate to say it, we're gonna struggle to spend. And we're gonna keep trying to figure out ways, whether it's more, but again, a lot of it can't be used during the regular day. And that's one of the challenges of even this family home interventionist is trying to figure out, and I haven't had the conversation, is I'm gonna need some leeway to have some after-school evening work along with day work if I have a chance of getting this in. And we're trying to be creative, but that 20% cannot go into just regular ed classroom, whether it's supplies, whether it was anything. It's for, they're calling learning recovery, and it's got stipulations on it. So, I mean,
Okay, so I don't know, learning recovery to me would be the lower class sizes and the support for the
but
staff, but.
that doesn't
but it can't
qualify.
be
I
for
just,
general. Okay,
well, and again, not to, like I say, I hope it's not looked at as us against students, because that obviously is not the reason, but the flip side is, if we have to have 40 in a class 2 years from now, that's not good either.
Right.
It's trying to balance, where do we start and where do we stop right now? See where we get to, and hopefully be, like I say, even, not below that 2.5 months, because that's the projection.
Further discussion? Okay, hearing none. I have a motion by Bruce and a second by Emily. I don't believe it's a roll call, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
aye.
Do you got it? We got it.
No, I don't. I'm going to need to raise the hands one way or the other.
Raise your hand if you are for the approval.
So it's 3-2, it passes.
Okay. Action item number 2, continue discussion from March 21st, 2022 school board meeting with possible action to add a school resource officer for the school year 2022 to 2023. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I got a motion, do I have a second? Second by Emily. Okay, further discussion. My further discussion is, it's always tough because we're talking about money. We said we wanted to table it last week, and I don't know that it's tough to spend that money on a resource officer when we're also cutting class and stuff.
And you heard my comment a few
No,
minutes
I know,
ago.
I get it, so.
I don't have more to add. Like I said, I'm not drawing a line in the sand. I mean, do I think it would be good? Yes. On the flip side, I can handle that being, again, going away for time being. Now, again, it would be a good thing, but
Did you on that one, on this one, did you talk about alternate funding sources, or is it mostly us paying for that?
well, right now it is us paying for it. It came up, the conversation came up probably 6 months ago with Mr. Koscheck, and had a conversation, and yeah, I think both the city and the school are not against it. We've had good relations. It would, I think, add some good things. And at that point, not knowing all of what ESSER 3, might even been ESSER 2 at the time, could be used for, that was a possibility. And even, I'm going to say, 5 months ago, we thought we were going to have 7,000 extra, 700,000 extra or something like that. So it was, hey, let's keep exploring, see what the city didn't, like I say, budget anything, so they can't make it a full-time position now, but if we wanted to entertain it, we could. That's where it came from. And like I say, I don't see a negative other than it costs money. And so that being said, it's not coming out of fear that, we need help, with our safety protocol or anything like that. So I can live, like I say, with personally, with it being going away for time being, doesn't mean it won't come back. We'll look at it, have more discussion if the time is right. Like I said, the schools, the Proctor, well, I talked to Mr. Engelking at Proctor. I also talked with Reggie from St. Louis County, but they have it in Mountain Iron and also Masada East. And they had nothing but positive comments. You know, they've incorporated, they help in all kinds of areas, and it would be a positive. So I guess my take is I can live with it staying idle, if that's the right word, for time being.
So we have a motion by Tony and a second by Emily. Somebody can certainly table it. We can vote on it.
Well, to me, I don't think we should table it.
Is there any more is there any more, may I discuss any more or
Oh,
no?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to do it.
I just want to say, I think it's, unless you can take that police officer and have them do teaching of students in the classroom, I just don't think it's a good time to do it. It would be a terrible mark on our school district to try and add that kind of dollars when we're really suffering with trying to get students educated. So I hope that those people who can vote, I can't because I'm on Zoom, that those people who can vote will vote to table it or deny it or something.
And again, a vote, and I just hope everyone that's on board, you know, a vote against doesn't mean you're necessarily against the concept, just like making a motion in a second so that we can discuss and, you know, consider the right time. I don't know if, well, I mean, personally, I don't think anyone would be against it if things were the right scenario. I mean, if someone came along with a $50,000 grant to cover it, I don't think we would turn it down. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
Oh, I think you're right, and I think it would be a good time to table that, because I think the more we talk with the city and Cape and any other interested parties, I think would benefit us the most too.
I have one little thing to add.
Go ahead, Jen.
I appreciate you offering more information, Kevin, and I know I feel like in my observations the past few years, I've witnessed the need in the business office, but I haven't necessarily heard our districts having a specific need for this type of resource officer. Do I think it would be positive? Yes. With the right program, I think it would be. And I would support it coming back and having a conversation again at a time when we can, again, understand the need and the cost benefit for that investment. Maybe hearing from the mental health providers, maybe hearing from where is our discipline needs, what are we, where are our biggest struggles there, and how is that impacting our students on an everyday basis, and then how will this resource officer help? So I think like the next time it comes around, just kind of knowing how we hope it will help our district based on our specific district's needs would be helpful. But I know it would be a positive program if done right. So I want to support it in that way, also saying I kind of agree with where Rox and Tony might be.
Oh, okay, so if we vote to table it, then we got to keep on bringing it up as an action item. We can just vote it down and then bring it up next time it suits us. If that's how, unless you, there is a normal motion and second, so you.
No, there is a motion and second. I think you vote on it and.
So unless somebody wants to table it, otherwise we vote on it. But with the idea of the funding comes, we can always, bring it back, so. Okay, so any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Tony and a second by Emily to add a school resource officer for the school year 2022-2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Aye. So that was everybody then, right?
Fails 05.
Okay. Okay, approve, action item number 3, approve increase of 0.67 FTE in business office for a district business office clerk position. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move, Joanne.
Got a motion by Joanne and a second.
So moved.
Second by Emily. My first question I have in regards to this is, could you just, for everybody's knowledge, say you have three, or and what they're in the business office, and what are they all full-time, or? I know we gotta be careful because it's HR a little bit too here, so.
Correct. There's 3 full-time positions right now, and then there's like I said, I'm going to call it a 4th position, which going back, used to be the position that sat in my office that was, I'm going to say, district support and food service. We cut that when that person retired. Since then, we have a person 1 hour a day, roughly 1 hour a day for food service. They hold that license. That's what that position is to hold. And then we've brought on another person that works, like I say, 2 days a week, 15 hours technically a week, most of the school year. Now, month of March, they usually go on a vacation. We know that, we plan. But it's for the most part special projects, because they're not there enough to where you can do cash receipts or do a specific job. Even board stuff, they want the flexibility. So that being said, we're looking at most likely a different position, okay? Possibly a different person, see what happens. We got to work through that. We're just looking at saying, we ran into a difficult spot here and we see our weakness. And we've talked about it for a couple of years, and now it was exposed that, you know what, the wrong person or two, something happens, and we don't run payroll. We don't get our, Mars Ed 5 submissions in. We need a little bit, unfortunately, we're just not big enough. We've always been, even audit, they talk about it. You're not big enough to have cross, well, we need to get some cross training in certain spots. Or, I'm just throwing it out, or we run the risk, and have to deal with, an emergency situation. Who can we get in here to help us and at what cost? And I don't think that's the best.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Part of the issue is there's never a good time to ask.
And I think I've fought asking for at least 3 years now. The brunt, part of what's happening is the brunt of the vacation relief and the backfill is fallen onto the business manager. I have no problem doing that. The issue is becoming that this year alone, I've probably lost 8 weeks of doing my own duties for the district, and that is compliance, it's fiscal integrity, it's budgeting. In addition to that, the federal compliance is becoming harder. The state compliance is becoming harder, and I have no capacity within my department, the business office department, to backfill or cover those things. Now, we can continue doing that. The reality is I work probably 50 hours a week, 12 months a year. I give up weekends, I give up evenings. I can only do that for so many years in a row. And part of that is because I am doing board duties. One of the questions really is also, does it really is it fiscally responsible for the district to pay me at my wages to be your secretary and for Kevin to do secretarial tasks? When we had turnover a couple of years ago in the office, I lost probably 3 to 4 months doing payroll and trying to do my own duties. And I didn't do my business manager duties well. And again, this year, I think you realized the audit got pushed out again another month. I've been late with the budgets again this year, and I've not been able to give you the detail you need for your budgets. I've racked my brain because I don't feel comfortable giving Kevin a budget that says we need to cut money unless I truly know that I am doing my best job for the district, and I don't know that I can truly say that anymore with what is on my plate. And I rely on
the staff to do what they can, but life events have been happening. And it's not a good time to ask, but coming back next week would not have been a good time. Coming back next month would not be a good time. Is it, in terms of the timing, it really wasn't until January and February that we went, you know what, I have to bite the bullet and say, I can't do it. I'm raising the hand and saying, Uncle, I am burnt out. And I think the district deserves better. I think our employees deserve better in terms of onboarding, in terms of their interaction with the business office. And yes, it is a little bit of an investment into the district. The question and more my concern is, if I were to walk out the door and take another job, you're looking at a minimum 5-year training into a business manager role. I have no ability right now to back train or absorb any duties. There just isn't within the, so what mainly happened is Sue's position got absorbed mainly onto Michelle Hopkins, and a little bit to Carla. We just don't have the capacity to cover for one another, because those duties that they do are everyday duties. They can't go a day, they can maybe go a day not being taken care of, but they can't not go a week, and they can't be ignored for 2 weeks. And so it just becomes a problem. And for the district. So I'm gonna go.
I would like to say this, Rox. I would like to say too that being a business owner and someone who is constantly being monitored and audited and required to do paperwork for the state and feds, it is extremely difficult to keep up on all of the requirements. And Stacy has never been known. We all have seen at times there may be some people who don't have quite as much energy as other people, but Stacy has not been known as any kind of a slacker whatsoever. And Stacy also has added tons of hours to her work week. And we can't keep doing that to her. And as much as our educational system needs teachers and paras and everything, what do you do if you don't get money coming in because the state says you better get these numbers in, or you have to send in things for, I don't have the terms, but like the Mars numbers and all that. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're not going to get our money. And that's only a piece of the problem. If teachers don't see a paycheck in their mailbox on the day they're supposed to, everybody's going to be up in arms. There are things that have to be taken care of. Unfortunately, it's at, once again, the absolutely worst time to do it. But it is absolutely necessary in my mind. That's all I have to say.
And again, just going on the comment, not saying we all pick, and whether it's us, whether it's teachers, whether it's paras, whether it's custodians, everyone has done extra and does do extra. And so it's not nitpicking, if you will. Yeah, there's things I type that I'm going to say Sue used to type or someone used to do. I can live with that to a certain extent, but it's how far and for how long, if we get someone to do it and I go home earlier, that isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for, can we do our job better, and can we cover in the event that something happens? And that's, I guess, from a district standpoint, what we need to answer is, do you want some cross-training? Do you want, hopefully, a better prepared and end product to come out, if that makes sense? Because, yeah, we can go. But like I say, when the time comes that we need it, we're going to pay for it. Because there are companies that we can find someone to come in if we need to and do our payroll for a month. But it's going to be very, very expensive. And then to train someone, at 5, it's totally new. Just
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
In my time as a board member, I've noticed the need there, and I remember when Sue left and noticing the changes there. I've had a conversation with administration for a few years to try to highlight we're getting all those jobs done, and not, I see the value in not having some of our higher paid employees doing some of the things that someone else can do, because it allows us to have room for growth and for being more efficient and more well-planned or prepared and things like that for these very important jobs. So I have seen the need in the times that I've learned more about finances as a board member. And I'm wondering, is the 37.7, is that considering, because will you keep the part-time 15-hour-a-week person on, and will the food service still be shifted to a different person, or will all that come back in? And does that 37.7 then still mean that's the additional, or is that the total? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, the total would end up coming out to be, for the most part, a 1.0 position again. Food service 1 hour a day would stay. I forget, was it a 0.92 at one point we came out to. Most likely, the two part-time positions would become one, and it's considered in there with the money to have benefits, being a business office position. Now, whether it starts out day one like that or it morphs into that, we haven't got down that road far enough. But realistically, we see long-term it becoming a fourth position, one position. Other than that 1 hour food service, because we need that license. Unless you just happen to hire the right person that had that license, then it could technically be a 1.0. But you see what I'm saying, Jen? We need the food service piece that Carla holds.
Okay, I hear. So Carla will keep the food service at this time.
Yep.
And this is a 0.67 is the request for the cost of 37.7. And that is in addition to the part-time person's job?
Correct.
Okay, so it's those 15 hours plus a little bit more here.
Yep.
That is a total of 37.7 extra. Is that right?
I just got
Okay.
one thing before I answer that. No, the 37,730 is 1,379 additional hours, a 0.67 as an FTE, and that includes the benefit piece that would go along with it. The other one must be roughly, is it 0.3? I guess. What's that?
0.25.
0.25 is the other one. And then, like I say, if you actually put in the food service hours, it would all total up very close to a 1.0.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, this rocks. I'm just wondering, and it might sound goofy, but I always probably sound goofy. Anyway, the thinking outside the box. Is there any way that, you talk about cross-training for your payroll and your other duties in that department, in the business department. Is there any way that we can start, as a school that is shrinking in size, start cross-training our people so that we can use those who are available and are being paid and yet don't have anything at the time to do because I know every once in a while something like that might come up. Is there a way we could use them as paras in the classroom, when and if they're available? And I know that, I don't mean to say that they're ever going to be available, but I do know there's got to be some times that maybe somebody's got a few extra minutes that can do something to help in the classroom. What about cross-training for all kinds of positions now that we're shrinking?
I mean, anything is possible. I mean, we talked about this position, like right now, we have a tough time. We have one person that can cover secretaries. One person, just because they filled in for several months. Other than that, most of the time we don't fill things. Now it is possible maybe this position, once they got in, learned Skyward and stuff, maybe could fill in, and be a viable, for a similar, I'm not saying the business office is the same as the secretary, but it's close enough, you know how to operate the phones, probably can look things up on, something like that, cross-training for this person or a business office person to someday go and sub in a class. I don't probably foresee that happening. I mean, I'll be honest, paras have filled in all kinds of places over the last year and a half, based on COVID needs and things like that. Teachers have filled in all kinds of places and teaching staff. I don't know, I guess, where else you're going, Rox, with, custodian running out of enough to do and going somewhere. I guess I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying that we don't end up with people saying, oh no, we can't do that, it's against the rules. When we're starting to look like, such a small, shrinking district, that we should maybe start thinking about being Green Acres and everybody's running the store and farm and everything else. I mean, I'm just trying to think outside the box, because I know that paras have helped out a lot, but then do secretaries help out a lot and other things? Do business people, do janitors? Is there a way that we can at least use them if they've got some time? And it's all I'm saying. And I just hate when I hear people say it's outside of my, I can sit and get paid, but I can't do anything for someone else. And again, please don't think that I'm saying anybody is sitting around doing nothing, but you do know that sometimes there must be some extra minutes that can't be used in the specific place they're hired for.
I believe Tony had a question too, unless somebody wants to.
Well, I just kind of have a comment off of Rox. I don't think with what Stacy's needing help with, I don't think those are little tasks that you can just hand off. From my understanding of the position, it's something that takes some time to train. But my question is, where is this fourth position? Where would they land? Because we're already struggling in the business office with 3, correct?
You mean as far as where their desk would be?
Where would you put that person?
We have a fourth person sitting right outside my door 2 days a week. I mean, that's an option. There used to be another person in the business office
There'd be 3 of us in the business office.
Well, correct. Michelle used to be in the business office. When COVID came around, she moved down to, I'm going to say, the old AD's office down by Community Ed.
Oh, I didn't realize she didn't move
No, she's been there. Not saying it, I'm not going to speak for her whether it's a great place or not. I mean, yeah, I would love to create offices. You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Well, I just know we're having a hard time with Community Ed trying to find that space. So that's why I was just wondering where we would even look at space.
So I think, let me rephrase a little bit, or walk this back. I guess the question is the board comfortable with the business manager being the backup for all the positions? And are you comfortable with the time that it takes away from me doing my duties as your business manager and managing the fiscal responsibilities of the district? Because that's the takeaway. Is if you are just as long as you understand that if somebody walks out the door, I'm the backfill, that means like for that month of January, that means I don't do business manager duties. I can only do so much in a day. I can only give up so many, I can only do so much. The impact is to the business manager's job, my job, not the people I'm covering, because their jobs are still going on. Their jobs are still getting done, maybe not as well as the people who know them best. But the question is I've become, I think inadvertently, unintentional hindsight when we eliminated this position for the secretary or the administrative assistant and the food service director. When we absorbed those duties, what we didn't leave ourselves with was any room to
take on extra and or vacation relief and cross-training. That windfall came to me. I took on extra duties as well, but not as much as like Michelle Hopkins did. So the question really is, and I think the auditor has spoken to that the last 2 years when they've been here, is be careful how much you put onto that business manager, because fiscal compliance is very important to being able to get federal grants. Bond rating is very important to that fiscal audit. Those things are being impacted. They are. I'm seeing it. You can't tell me he's not seeing it and you're not seeing it. There isn't any time for me to do the true business manager duties. As long as you're aware of that risk and what that does to the integrity and my ability to do my job, that's the question to me of what does the district want? What does the board want? Are you okay?
And this rocks. I don't mean to say that business manager people should be helping out with education. I'm more talking about secretaries, cross-training for parents, and janitorial staff cross-training. I need to clarify that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion by board members? Okay, we do have a motion by Joanne and a second by Emily to increase of 0.67 FTE in business office for district business office clerk position. Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
You got it?
I believe it was 4-1.
4-1, I believe. Okay, thank you. Okay, the last thing I believe is the adjournment. Is there anything else besides that, Kevin? I don't want to miss anything before we adjourn.
Do we need to read any of those comments that are up there, or is that just to Stacy?
You know, I don't know what they
I just see
say.
there's like 31 chat. Is that normal for a meeting time?
So we generally don't, like if somebody wants to speak at an open
Okay.
forum or discussion, but it's bad.
We're not going to go through, I mean, they're on there, they're public.
Okay.
I mean, there was quite a few of them where people want to speak or hear or whatever, you know, that type of.
Okay, gotcha.
Now there have been comments that people can go look at.
Just checking.
It's kind of like being, again, not, you know, I haven't read them all, so I'm not speaking to
Right.
them. I mean, I don't want to say they're not important or are important, but that's not the feedback. You know, it's just like now, this group can't technically speak, you know what I'm saying?
They
So-
didn't come in at the
Correct. They
discussion
won't-
point.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion by Joanne. Do I have a second at 7:07?
I'll second.
Second by Tony. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thanks again to everybody who came today.